My mother's name was Diane. I want to say that first. Before anything else. Before all of it. Her name was Diane. She liked terrible reality TV and made the best rice you've ever had in your life, and she laughed with her whole body. The kind of laugh that filled a room and embarrassed you in restaurants and made every holiday feel like a real holiday. She was 41 when the diagnosis came. Stage 3 breast cancer. I was 14. The word cancer does something to a household. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It just quietly rearranges everything. The schedule, the conversations, the sound of the house at night, the way your dad looks at your mom when he thinks nobody's watching. Only I was watching. And what I saw in my father's face wasn't fear. It wasn't devotion. It was something closer to inconvenience. I told myself I was reading it wrong. Kids do that. They protect the version of their parents they need to believe in. So I looked away. And I kept looking away. For 2 years. I was 16 when he sat me down. A Tuesday evening. My mom was in her room. The door was closed. She'd had a rough treatment day, the kind where she couldn't keep anything down and the exhaustion wasn't tiredness. It was something heavier, something that lived in the bones. Dad was in the living room, sitting forward, hands clasped, the posture of a man who had rehearsed something. He said, "There's someone I want you to meet." And before I could process what that sentence meant in this context, Sandra walked in from the kitchen. Sandra, mid-30s, nice shoes, the smile of someone who had been coached on how to do this. She said, "Hi, I've heard so much about you." And I remember thinking, how long? Not who are you? Not why are you in my house? Just how long? My father explained it the way men like him explain things. Calmly, reasonably, with the quiet authority of someone who has decided the explanation is a courtesy rather than an apology. He and Sandra had been seeing each other for 14 months. 14 months. My mother had been in that house, in that room, down that hall for 14 months, and he had been. I stood up. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I looked at Sandra once more. And what I saw on her face wasn't guilt. It was practiced sympathy. The look of someone who has made their peace with a thing and needs you to make yours. I walked down the hall, knocked on my mother's door, sat on the edge of her bed. She was awake. She looked at my face and she knew. Not the details, but the shape of it. Mothers know. I said, "We're leaving." She was quiet for a long time. The kind of quiet that tells you a person has already cried everything they had about something, and now they're just on the other side of it. She said, "Okay. Just okay." And that single word from a woman who had every right to fall apart, but didn't. That was the bravest thing I've ever heard in my life. My grandmother, my mother's mother, lived across the state. Her name was Ruth. She was 68, stubborn as concrete, and had a voice that could stop traffic. When I called her from the gas station parking lot while my mom sat in the car, she didn't ask questions. She said, "How soon can you drive?" I said, "Tomorrow." She said, "I'll have the beds made." That was the whole conversation. We pulled up to Ruth's house on a Thursday afternoon in November. She was standing on the porch, arms crossed. Not because she was cold, because that was just how Ruth stood when she was trying not to cry. She walked to the car, opened my mom's door, took her hand, and walked her inside without a word. Left me to carry the bags, which felt right. I was the man now. Might as well start. Ruth's house became our world. Small, warm, perpetually smelling of something cooking. I enrolled in a school nearby, attended for 3 weeks. Then the first bill came. Then the second. Treatment doesn't pause because your life has fallen apart. Cancer doesn't negotiate. It just keeps sending invoices. I got the first job mornings at a grocery store, stacking shelves before school hours. Then a gas station in the evenings. Then a warehouse on weekends. My body was 16 years old. My schedule was something else entirely. Ruth handled the divorce lawyer fees. She didn't make a thing of it. Just made calls, wrote checks, showed up to things. The lawyer she found was good. Not as good as my father's lawyer. His lawyer wore a nicer suit. That's how these things work. The settlement came through after 7 months of paperwork and postponements, and my father contesting things he had no business contesting. The number was decent. I remember Mom sitting at Ruth's kitchen table when it finalized. She held the paper for a long time. Ruth put tea in front of her. Mom looked up and said, "We're okay." She said it like she was trying to convince herself. Like if she said it with enough steadiness, it would become load-bearing. That number lasted 8 months. Treatment costs, new medications, a hospital stay in the spring that nobody planned for. Gone. Just gone. And the jobs kept going. And the debt kept stacking. And I kept waking up at 5. My cousin Lily started calling around year 2. Lily was 22. Warm voice. Good questions. The kind of cousin who remembered your birthday and texted just to check in. I trusted her completely. She'd ask about Mom's treatment. Ask how the jobs were going. Ask if I needed anything. I told her things. Real things. The kind you only tell people you trust. I was an idiot. But we'll get to that. I turned 18 to no fanfare. 3 jobs. Ruth's cooking. Mom having a slightly better month. A cake with candles that Ruth pretended weren't from the discount rack. I blew them out and didn't make a wish. Wishes felt like an insult to my situation. 3 weeks after my birthday, Lily called. Casual. Catching up. And then, almost as an aside, she mentioned that my father had received a major promotion. New title. Significant raise. She said he and Sandra had gone to Bali. She said the photos were beautiful. She said he just put a deposit down on a new condo. Downtown. Views of the river. She said it all like she was reading a weather report. Like this information was neutral. Like I was a person who could hear it neutrally. I said, "That's interesting, Lily. Thanks for calling." Hung up. Drove to work. Sat in the parking lot for 11 minutes before I could make my legs move. Because the math was right there. Right in front of me. Impossible to ignore. He walked away. Got promoted. Got the girl. Got the condo. Got the vacation. I stayed. I chose right. I have 3 jobs and a grocery store uniform, and debt I can't see the end of. And somewhere between Ruth's kitchen table and that parking lot, I had the ugliest thought I've ever had. What was the point? Not of living. I need to be clear about that. But of choosing right. If the universe doesn't actually keep score. If karma is something we invented to make injustice feel temporary. Then what exactly am I doing this for? I sat with that question for a long time. In that parking lot. In other parking lots. At 3 in the morning. Before shifts. After them. I still don't have a clean answer. I'm not going to pretend I do. Ruth went on a Tuesday. In her sleep. Which is the way you'd want it if you had any say. but nobody gave us any say. I woke up at 5 for my shift. The house was quiet in a way it hadn't been before. There's a specific silence that means something is wrong. I found her. I won't describe it. I sat with her for a while. Then I called an ambulance. Then I went to the kitchen and made my mom's morning tea without knowing why. Just because I needed something to do with my hands. The grief hit me 2 days later. A grocery store parking lot. Different store than usual. I was on a break, eating a sandwich I didn't taste. And it just came, not loudly. The way things fall apart when there's nobody watching. No performance. Just a person alone in a car thinking about a woman who opened her door. Made the beds. Put the kettle on. Paid lawyers she couldn't really afford. Never mentioned it. Never held it over anyone. Just loved us. Completely. Quietly. And then was gone. And I thought about my father at some bar somewhere. Downtown. River views. And I thought about all the things I'd been taught. Good things come to good people. Truth always comes out. Reap what you sow. And sitting in that parking lot, I wanted to find whoever taught me those things and ask them what exactly they were trying to protect me from. Because the protection hadn't worked, and the truth hadn't come out, and the reaping wasn't going the way the saying promised. The neighbors saved me without knowing they were saving me. Family Akefer, Bernard and Nkeche lived on our left. Nigerian family. 3 kids. The kind of household that operated at a volume that meant life was happening inside it. Nkeche started leaving food at the door around the time Ruth passed. Didn't knock. Just left it. Jollof rice. Stew. One time an entire pot of egusi soup that lasted me 4 days. She never asked to be thanked. Bernard was a mechanic. He serviced my car twice for free, and when I tried to pay him, he said, "Save it, you'll need it." He was right. Family raised Carmen and Marco on our right. Carmen worked nights. She and my mom started talking through the fence sometime in the 2nd year. Just 2 women, sitting on their respective sides, talking about nothing and everything. Marco coached youth football on weekends. He started leaving sports drinks outside my door on days he knew I had doubles. Never made it weird. Just left them there. Old Mr. Peterson across the street. 74. Retired postman. The man never said more than 12 words at a time. But he mowed our front lawn every single week for 2 years. Without being asked. Without mentioning it. I'd come home and it would just be done. These people never signed up for what we were carrying. They just looked over the fence one day and saw 2 people struggling and decided, quietly, practically, without ceremony, to help. I think about them when people talk about the goodness of the world. Like, yes, not the big theatrical goodness. The quiet kind. The jollof rice at the door. The lawn that's just mowed. That kind. Mom held on longer than anyone thought she would. The doctors had timelines. Diane ignored them. Very on brand for her. She had good months and terrible months. Months where she'd sit in the garden with Carmen and laugh about something. Months where she couldn't lift her arms. I watched her shrink. Slowly. The way winter takes a garden. You don't see it happening in real time. Then one day you look and everything is different. She died on a Thursday morning. April. I was there. I had called into all 3 jobs. First time I'd done that. The room was quiet. Nkeche had left flowers in the hallway the night before, like she somehow knew. Mom had been drifting for 2 days. Then at some point in the early morning, she just wasn't. I held her hand for a while after, because I wasn't ready for the hand to mean something different yet. Then I sat in the hallway on the floor, because chairs felt too normal for what had just happened. And I thought, she never got the ending she deserved. She loved the right person, and he ruined it. She fought as hard as a person can fight. And still, Bernard found me in that hallway an hour later. He sat down on the floor next to me. Didn't say anything. Just sat. For about 20 minutes. Then he said, "I'll make the calls." And he did. Enkecha and Carmen handled the funeral arrangements. Mr. Peterson showed up with his good shoes on and stood in the back the whole service. Nobody asked them to do any of it. They just did. They showed up on the third day. I was home alone. The Okafors had just left. Enkecha had cleaned the kitchen. Bernard had taken out the boxes. The house was quiet and still smelled like her somehow. I heard the cars before I saw them. 2. Parking outside. I looked through the window. My father, Sandra, 3 aunts, 2 uncles, a cousin I hadn't seen in 4 years, walking up the path like a delegation, like they'd coordinated, like they'd had a group chat about how to do this. My father was in the front, wearing a jacket I hadn't seen before. Nice watch. The watch of a man who had been doing well. He knocked 3 times. Firm. The knock of a man who still believed he had standing here. I opened the door, and the first thing I noticed was that Sandra was behind him. She had come to my mother's house 3 days after my mother died. She had physically gotten in a car and come here. My father opened his mouth. I don't remember the first sentence. Something about needing to talk and putting things behind us, and Diane would have wanted. He said her name. He said my mother's name. And something in my chest just unlocked. I stepped out of the doorway. My father saw my face and stopped talking mid-sentence. Good. He should have stopped sooner. I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time in 4 years. And I said, "You don't say her name. You lost the right to say her name when you brought that woman into our house, while she was on a chemo drip. Down the hall. You don't say her name." My uncle, my father's brother, took a step forward. Started talking about respect. About family. About how this wasn't the time or place for. I turned to him and said, "You didn't call once. 4 years. Not once. You don't get to tell me what time or place this is." My father made a mistake then. He reached out and put his hand on my shoulder. Like that was something he was still allowed to do. Like we were still in a relationship where that gesture meant something warm. I looked at his hand. I looked at his face. And then I hit him. Once. Clean. Right on the nose. Not a slap. Not a shove. A punch. He stumbled back into Sandra. She grabbed him. The ants made sounds. My uncle shouted something. Blood. Not a lot. But enough. My father looked up at me with his hand over his nose. And for 1 second, 1 single second, he looked genuinely shocked. Like he hadn't expected consequences. Which told me everything I needed to know about the last 4 years. I pointed. At him. At Sandra. At every single face on that path. And I said, "Every one of you is dead to me. You don't come to her house. You don't say her name. You don't get to grieve someone you abandoned. Get off this property. And don't come back. Bernard appeared at the gate. He hadn't been there a second ago. He was just there, arms crossed, the way a large man stands when he wants something to be over without having to make it physical. Marco appeared on the other side. Same posture. My father looked at them, looked at me, pressed his sleeve to his nose, and walked back to his car. Sandra followed. Then the aunts. Then the uncles. One by one. Nobody said another word. Bernard waited until both cars turned the corner. Then he looked at me, said nothing, went back inside, left me on the porch. My hand was shaking. Not from guilt. From 4 years of something finally having somewhere to go. Lily called 6 days later. I almost didn't answer. Something in my stomach said, wait. I answered. She opened with condolences. The right words in the right order. And then gently, carefully. She began. Dad was really hurt. Not just the nose, though yes, that too. He just wants to rebuild. He's been carrying guilt. Sandra is actually wonderful once you get to know her. The family misses me. There was already so much loss. Did I really want more? And then, the reason for the call. Dad and Sandra are getting married. Venue in Tuscany. She'd love for me to come. It would mean everything to him. A chance for healing. A new chapter. She said the words new chapter like they were a gift. Like I hadn't been living in a chapter that nobody asked me to be in. I let her finish. Every word. Then I said, Lily, how long have you been reporting back to him? Silence. Long enough to be an answer. I said, every call, every check-in, all those questions about Mom's treatment, about the jobs, about how we were holding up. That was all going back to him, wasn't it? She started to explain. I said, I'm not going to the wedding. Not because I can't move on, but because I refuse to be the moment in their wedding story where everything was finally okay. I won't give him that. He doesn't get a clean conscience on my back. Don't call me again. I hung up, blocked the number, sat in the kitchen for a while. And Katja had left soup on the stove. I ate it. It was good. Life is strange like that. I'm 21 now. Still 3 jobs. Medical debt that, if nothing unexpected happens, will take about 3 years to close. Something unexpected always happens. I don't have a degree. I don't have a clear path. I don't have a 5-year plan that isn't just survive. My father is getting married in Tuscany. I saw a photo on Instagram. Him and Sandra at the venue. Golden light. His arm around her. Both of them laughing. He looks good. Healthy. Happy. The watch is even nicer now. The comments are full of people saying, so happy for you. Love this for you both. Can't wait to celebrate. Nobody in those comments knows about Diane. About the room down the hall. About the chemo drip. About the kid who took 3 jobs at 16. About the parking lots. About the punch. About any of it. To those people in those comments, this is just a love story. A second chance. And maybe that's fine. Maybe they don't need to know. But I know. And I've been sitting with a question for about a year now. People keep saying karma is coming. That it catches up. That good things are waiting for me. That Mom is at peace. That it was worth it. And I believe some of that. I believe she's at peace. I believe the Okafors and the Reyeses and Mr. Peterson are proof that the world isn't all rot. I believe the punch was worth it. But karma catching up to my father. I haven't seen it. He's in Tuscany. I'm closing out a Tuesday double. Maybe it's coming. Maybe it isn't. Maybe the honest thing, the thing nobody puts on a motivational post, is that sometimes the wrong person wins. And the right person just has to live with that. Without a reason. Without a lesson. Without a narrative that makes it make sense. Just with it. The way you carry something heavy for long enough that you stop noticing the weight. Except sometimes. In parking lots. At 5 in the morning. When it's quiet enough to feel it. I did the right thing. I chose my mother. And she was worth every single cost. I want to be clear about that. She was worth it. But I also want to be clear about the other thing. About the thing that doesn't fit on a t-shirt. Doing the right thing doesn't always mean things turn out right. Sometimes you just did the right thing. And that's all it is. A thing you did. That cost everything. That you do again. In an empty room. With no applause. And no one keeping score. Just you. Still here. Still paying the bills. Still carrying her name. Diane. That was her name. I wanted to say it one more time. Somebody should.
Hey dear listeners, this is Talks from the Net. Thanks for listening. If you like the content, then please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more stories. You can also find me on Spotify, Instagram, and Facebook too. See you on the next video.